The morning air was still cool when old Mrs. Chen stepped out of her small house. It was barely 5 in the morning and the world was quiet. Most people were still sleeping in their warm beds, but not her. She had work to do. Her knees hurt as she walked down the dirt path toward the hills. They hurt every morning now. At 68 years old, her body reminded her of every single year she had lived. But she couldn't stop. She had a grandson to take care of, and that was all that mattered. The small cloth bag hung from her shoulder as she climbed the gentle slope behind her village. She knew exactly where to look. After so many years of gathering herbs, she could spot them even in the dim light of early dawn. A patch of fresh mint near the old tree, wild cilantro growing beside the stream, some ginger root that took effort to dig out of the hard ground. Her hands moved slowly but surely. These same hands had raised 3 children. These same hands had buried her husband 20 years ago. These same hands had held her newborn grandson when his mother, her daughter-in-law, placed him in her arms for the first time. And these same hands had wiped away tears 3 years ago, when that terrible accident took both his parents away. She didn't like thinking about that day. The police coming to her door. The news about the factory collapse. Her son and his wife gone in an instant. And suddenly at 65 she became a mother again. But this time to a 12-year-old boy who had lost everything. By 6:30 her bag was half full. It would have to do. Her back was already aching and she still had to walk to the market. The town market was a good 40-minute walk from her house, but she made that journey 6 days a week. Sunday was her only rest day, and even then she spent it preparing for the week ahead. The market was just starting to come alive when she arrived. Other vendors were setting up their stalls. The fish seller was arranging his morning catch on ice. The vegetable vendor was stacking pyramids of tomatoes and potatoes. The fabric seller was hanging colorful cloths on her wooden frame. Mrs. Chen's spot was humble. She didn't have a proper stall. Just an old bamboo mat that she spread on the ground near the market entrance. It wasn't the best location, but it was hers. She had been coming to this exact spot for 8 years now, ever since her son's salary had stopped being enough for the household. She sat down with some difficulty and began arranging her herbs. Each bundle had to look nice, fresh, worth buying. She tied the cilantro with thin strips of cloth, arranged the mint in neat little piles. The medicinal herbs, the ones she knew could help with stomach pain and headaches, she kept separate. Those were special. Her own mother had taught her about these plants when she was just a girl. "Morning, Auntie Chen," called out Mr. Wong from his vegetable stall nearby. He was a kind man, always greeting her with respect. "Good morning," she replied with a small smile. Her voice was soft, worn out from years of calling out to customers. "How's the boy doing in school?" Mr. Wong asked. Everyone in the market knew about her grandson. "He's doing well, very well. His teacher says he's the smartest in his class." There was pride in her voice. Despite everything, despite all the hardship, Liang was thriving. He studied hard every single night. While other boys his age played in the streets, her grandson had his nose in books. "That's good, Auntie, that's very good. Education is important," she nodded. Education was everything. It was the only way out of this life. The only way Liang could have a better future than she did. Better than his father did. The morning customers started arriving. A young mother bought some cilantro for her soup. An old man purchased ginger root for his tea. A middle-aged woman asked about the medicinal herbs, and Mrs. Chen explained carefully how to prepare them. Each sale meant a few coins in her small purse. She counted them quietly. 15 coins so far. If she could make 50 by the end of the day, that would be good. She needed to save up for Liang's exam fees next month. The school had sent a notice home. 200 coins for the final examinations. It seemed like a fortune to her, but she would find a way. She always did. The sun climbed higher in the sky. The market grew busier and noisier. Vendors called out their prices. Customers bargained loudly. Children ran between the stalls, laughing and playing. The smell of cooking food drifted from the small restaurant at the corner of the market. Mrs. Chen's stomach rumbled. She had eaten only a small bowl of rice porridge before leaving home. She needed to save food for Liang. Growing boys need to eat well. She could manage with less. By noon, she had made 32 coins. Not bad, but not enough. Her herbs were selling slowly today. Maybe people had already bought what they needed earlier in the week. Maybe they were saving money too. Times were hard for everyone. She watched the other vendors eating their lunch. Some had brought food from home. Others bought from the restaurant. She sipped water from her old bottle and waited for more customers. An elderly gentleman stopped at her mat. He looked at her medicinal herbs with interest. "What are these for?" he asked, pointing at a particular plant. "This one helps with joint pain, sir. You boil it with water and drink it like tea. It helped my own knees when they got very bad." He studied her face for a moment. Maybe he saw the tiredness there. Maybe he saw the lines of worry. Or maybe he just saw an old woman trying to make an honest living. "I'll take 3 bundles," he said. She couldn't hide her surprise.
3, are you sure, sir?
"1 bundle lasts a long time. I'm sure. My wife has the same problem. And maybe my sister too." She wrapped the herbs carefully and took his money. 10 coins. Her heart felt a little lighter. 42 coins now. Getting closer. The afternoon wore on slowly. The heat made her drowsy, but she couldn't sleep. Couldn't miss a potential customer. Every coin counted. Every single one. She thought about Liang sitting in his classroom right now, learning mathematics and science and history, things she herself never had the chance to learn. She could barely read and write. But her grandson, he was different. He was going to be somebody. Maybe a teacher, maybe a doctor. He talked about becoming a doctor sometimes, about helping people who were sick. A doctor. Could her grandson really become a doctor? It seemed impossible. Doctors came from wealthy families. They went to expensive universities. How could a poor boy raised by his grandmother in a one-room house ever become a doctor? But then she remembered his last report card. Perfect scores in every subject. His teacher had pulled her aside and said something she would never forget. "Your grandson has a gift, Mrs. Chen, a real gift. Don't let it go to waste." She wouldn't. No matter how much her body hurt, no matter how tired she became, she would sell herbs every single day if that's what it took. By the time the sun started setting, she had made 48 coins. Too short of her goal, but close enough. Tomorrow would be another day. Another chance. She packed up her bamboo mat slowly. Her legs felt like stone as she stood up. The walk home seemed longer than the walk there. But she moved forward 1 step at a time, the way she had done for so many years. When she reached her small house, she could see light coming from inside. Liang was home from school. That always made everything worthwhile. Just seeing his face, knowing he was safe and healthy and studying hard, that was enough. She pushed open the door and stepped inside, ready to hear about his day, ready to encourage his dreams, ready to keep fighting for the future he deserved. Liang woke up before his alarm went off. He always did. The small clock on the wooden box beside his sleeping mat showed 5:15 in the morning. Through the thin walls of their house, he could hear his grandmother moving around, getting ready to leave for the hills. He kept his eyes closed and stayed very still. He did this every morning, pretended to be asleep so she wouldn't worry about waking him. She always tried to be so quiet, tiptoeing around their single room, gathering her things in the dark. She thought he needed rest. She didn't know that he barely slept anymore. The front door creaked open and closed softly. He waited until he heard her footsteps fade away, then sat up. His school books were stacked neatly in the corner, right where he had left them last night. Or rather, early this morning. He had studied until almost 2, working by the light of a single candle. They couldn't afford to waste electricity. The small bulb hanging from their ceiling was only for cooking dinner and getting ready in the evening. For studying, Liang used candles. They were cheaper. He had gotten used to the flickering light, the way the shadows danced on the walls while he read. He picked up his mathematics book and opened it to where he had stopped. There was a test today. He needed to do well. He needed to do better than well. He needed to be perfect. Being first in class wasn't just about pride. It was about the future. It was about making sure his grandmother's sacrifices meant something. Every morning she climbed those hills with her aching knees. Every day she sat in the hot market for hours. All for him. All so he could have books, uniform, and exam fees. The weight of that sat heavy on his 15-year-old shoulders. He studied until 6:30, then got ready for school. A quick wash with cold water from the bucket. The same uniform he wore every day, washed by his grandmother every Sunday. A small breakfast of leftover rice with a bit of preserved vegetable. He saved the egg she had left for him, wrapping it carefully. He would eat it at lunch. School was a 30-minute walk from their house. Liang didn't mind. It gave him time to think, to go over lessons in his head. Some of his classmates came in cars or on motorcycles. Others rode bicycles. He walked. But he never felt bad about it. Walking was free. His first class was chemistry. Mr. Tan, the chemistry teacher, was handing back last week's test papers. Liang, stay back after class, Mr. Tan said as he placed the paper on Liang's desk. There was a big red 100 at the top. Perfect score. Again, Liang's heart sank a little. Teachers only asked you to stay back for 2 reasons. Either you were in trouble or they wanted to talk about something serious. He was never in trouble. When the classroom emptied, Mr. Tan sat on the edge of his desk and looked at Liang with kind eyes. You're the best student I've taught in 20 years, Mr. Tan began. Your understanding of complex concepts is remarkable. You don't just memorize, you actually understand. Thank you, sir, Liang said quietly. I've been speaking with the other teachers. We all agree that you're wasting your potential here. Liang felt his stomach twist. Was his teacher saying he didn't belong here? Mr. Tan must have seen the worry on his face because he quickly continued. No, don't misunderstand. What I mean is, you should be at Provincial No. 1 High School. It's the best school in the entire province. They have proper science labs, a real library, teachers who specialize in preparing students for university entrance exams. Provincial No. 1, Liang had heard of it. Everyone had. It was where the children of government officials and wealthy business families went. It might as well have been on the moon for someone like him. I can't afford that, sir, Liang said simply. I know, but listen. Every year they accept a few students based purely on merit. Full scholarship. Everything paid for. And I think you have a real chance. The entrance exam is in 2 months. A scholarship. Full scholarship. The words echoed in Liang's mind. I've already submitted your name, Mr. Tan continued. These are the study materials you'll need. The exam is much harder than what you're used to, but I believe in you. Liang took the thick envelope his teacher handed him. Inside were practice papers, study guides, information about the exam format. His hands trembled slightly as he held it. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. I know you won't, but Liang, there's something else. The application requires a fee. 200 coins. It's due in 3 weeks. 200 coins. The same amount his grandmother was trying to save for his regular exam fees. And now he needed it for just the application? Not even the school itself, just the application? I understand, sir. I'll find a way. But as he walked home that afternoon, the envelope felt heavy in his bag. How could he tell his grandmother? She was already working herself to the bone. He couldn't ask for more. He wouldn't. That evening, after his grandmother returned from the market, Liang didn't mention the conversation with Mr. Tan. Instead, he watched her massage her swollen feet, watched her wince when she thought he wasn't looking. She was 68 years old. She should be resting, maybe tending a small garden, visiting with friends, not selling herbs in the market every single day. How was school? She asked, like she always did. Good. I got 100 on my chemistry test. Her tired face lit up with joy. 100 again? My smart boy. He smiled, but inside his heart was breaking. He needed to do something. He couldn't keep being a burden. He had to find a way to help. The next day after school, instead of going straight home, Liang went to the town center. There was a bulletin board where people posted job notices. Most wanted adults, but sometimes there were odd jobs for students. Delivery work, cleaning, helping with harvests, he found one. A tutoring job. A wealthy family needed someone to help their 10-year-old son with homework. 3 times a week, 2 hours each session. They would pay 30 coins per week. Liang went to the address immediately. The house was large, with a real gate and a small garden. He felt out of place in his worn uniform, but he rang the bell anyway. The mother who answered looked him up and down skeptically. You're just a boy yourself, she said. I'm 15, ma'am. I'm ranked first in my entire school. I can help your son. I promise. Maybe something in his voice convinced her. Maybe she saw the determination in his eyes. She agreed to a trial session. That first evening, Liang helped the boy with his mathematics homework. The problems were simple for Liang, but he was patient, explaining things in ways the child could understand. By the end of the 2 hours, the boy was smiling and actually enjoying the work. Come back on Wednesday, the mother said, handing him 10 coins. You're hired. Liang clutched those 10 coins all the way home. It was a start. Small, but a start. He hid them in an old tin can under his sleeping mat, planning to add to it each week. He couldn't tell his grandmother. She would insist on using the money for household expenses. No, this money had one purpose only: the application fee for provincial #1 high school. Over the next 2 weeks, Liang added 2 more jobs. On Saturdays, he helped Mr. Chen, the grocer, stack goods and serve customers. 4 hours of work for 15 coins. On Sunday afternoons, when his grandmother took her only rest day, he delivered vegetables for the market vendors who lived far from the market. Another 10 coins. He was sleeping only 4 or 5 hours a night now. Wake early, study. Go to school. After school, do his jobs. Come home, eat dinner with grandmother. Study more after she fell asleep. His eyes burned from tiredness. His body ached, but he kept going. The tin can under his mat was getting heavier. 60 coins after 2 weeks, then 90, then 120. His grandmother noticed he looked tired. "Are you feeling sick?" she asked one evening, touching his forehead. "No, Grandma, just studying hard. I want to make you proud." "You already make me proud every single day." He hugged her then, this strong woman who had given up everything for him, and he promised himself silently that he would succeed, not just for himself but for her. He would get into that school. He would become somebody, and one day she would never have to sell herbs in the market again. 3 weeks later, he had saved 180 coins. Just 20 more to go. The application deadline was in 5 days. He was so close, so very close. But then something happened that would change everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and the market was quieter than usual. Mrs. Chen sat on her bamboo mat, arranging and rearranging her herbs, hoping to attract customers. She had only made 20 coins so far, and the day was almost over. That's when she noticed a man in an expensive-looking suit walking through the market. He looked completely out of place. His leather shoes weren't meant for the dusty market ground. His clothes were too fine, too clean. People like him usually sent their maids or drivers to buy things. They didn't come themselves. The man was looking around, studying each vendor carefully. He stopped at Mr. Wong's vegetable stall and asked something. Mr. Wong pointed in her direction. Mrs. Chen's heart started beating faster. Was something wrong? Did she owe money she had forgotten about? Was there some problem with selling herbs here? The man walked directly toward her and stopped right in front of her mat. Up close, she could see he was probably in his 40s, with kind eyes and a gentle face. But she was still nervous. "Excuse me," he said politely. "Are you Mrs. Chen? Mother of Chen Wei?" At the sound of her son's name, Mrs. Chen felt her whole body go cold. Nobody had spoken her son's name in so long. She looked up at the stranger with wide eyes, her throat suddenly tight. "Yes," she managed to whisper. "I am, but my son, he passed away 3 years ago." The man's face filled with such deep sadness that it looked like someone had struck him. He closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them again, they were wet with tears. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I didn't know. I only just found out he was gone." He sat down on the ground across from her, not caring about his expensive suit getting dusty. Other vendors were watching now, curious about this strange scene. "My name is Zhang Ming," he said. "Your son and I were roommates in university. We were best friends for 4 years. He was like a brother to me." Mrs. Chen stared at him. She remembered now. Wei had mentioned a friend named Zhang. They had studied together, stayed up late talking about their dreams. But after graduation, they had lost touch. Life had taken them in different directions. "After university, I started a business," Zhang Ming continued. "It did well, very well. I traveled a lot, moved to the capital city. Wei and I wrote letters for a few years, but then I lost his address when I moved offices. I always meant to find him again. I always thought there would be time." His voice broke a little on those last words. "Last month I was going through old university photos. I saw Wei's face and realized how many years had passed. So I hired someone to help me find him. And that's when I learned about the accident. About his wife. And about you raising his son alone." Mrs. Chen wiped her own tears with the corner of her sleeve. "Wei was a good boy. A good man. He worked so hard for his family." "He was the best person I ever knew," Zhang Ming said. "He helped me so much when we were young. When I was sick, he took care of me. When I had no money for food, he shared his meals with me, even though he had very little himself. I owed him everything, and I never got the chance to pay him back." They sat in silence for a moment. Two people connected by a man who was gone, remembering someone they both loved. "But his son is still here," Jiang Ming said finally. Wei's boy. Your grandson. Tell me about him. Mrs. Chen's face transformed when she talked about Liang. Despite her tears, pride shone through. She told Jiang Ming everything. How smart Liang was. How hard he studied. How he was first in his entire school. How his teachers said he had a special gift. Jiang Ming listened carefully to every word. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Mrs. Chen, he said slowly. I want to help. Please let me help. I have more money than I need, and Wei was like my brother. Let me support Liang's education. Let me pay for everything. But Mrs. Chen's face changed. Her back straightened. Her jaw set in that stubborn way that had helped her survive so many hard years. No, she said firmly. Thank you, but no. I don't take charity. I never have. I can take care of my grandson myself. It's not charity, Jiang Ming said quickly. It's paying back a debt to my friend. My son never asked you for anything, and neither will I. Jiang Ming looked frustrated but also understanding. He could see where Wei had gotten his pride and strength. It came from this small, tough woman who sold herbs to survive. Then let me think of another way, he said. Please give me a chance to honor my friendship with Wei. Mrs. Chen didn't answer. She just looked at her herbs, her lips pressed together in a thin line. Jiang Ming stood up slowly. I'll come back, he said. In 1 week. Please, just think about it. I'm not trying to insult you. I just want to help a friend's son have the chances his father would have wanted for him. He pulled out a business card and placed it gently on her mat. Then he walked away, leaving Mrs. Chen sitting there with her thoughts spinning. That evening, she told Liang about the visit. She didn't mention the offer of help, only that an old friend of his father had come to pay respects. Liang listened quietly, looking at the business card his grandmother had brought home. I barely remember him, Liang said softly, but I remember my father mentioning a friend named Zhang. He said they were like brothers. Over the next few days, Mrs. Chen couldn't stop thinking about Jiang Ming's words. She was proud, yes, but was her pride more important than Liang's future? At night, she lay awake asking herself these difficult questions. Meanwhile, Jiang Ming was busy. He hadn't become successful by giving up easily. If direct help was too much for Mrs. Chen's pride, he would find another way. He made phone calls. He visited offices. He planned. By the end of the week, he had created something new, a scholarship foundation for children from poor families who showed exceptional academic promise. It had proper paperwork, a board of directors, and everything official. It wasn't charity. It was a legitimate program that would help many students, and Liang would be the first recipient. But there was more. Jiang Ming had also called his company's research library and created a new part-time position. A library assistant who would organize files and help with simple research tasks. The job would pay a modest but fair wage for weekend work. And the first candidate he wanted to interview was a 15-year-old boy named Liang. When Jiang Ming returned to the market exactly 1 week later, as he had promised, he carried a folder full of documents. Mrs. Chen was at her usual spot, and she had been watching for him. She had made her decision. I've thought about what you said, she began before he could speak, and you're right. My pride is not more important than Liang's chances, but I have conditions. Anything, Jiang Ming said eagerly. Liang must never know that you're doing this because of his father. He must think he earned it on his own merit. Because he did earn it, he is that smart and that hardworking. This cannot be about pity. It's not pity, Jiang Ming said. I did research on the boy. I spoke to his teachers. He really is exceptional. Any scholarship program would be lucky to have him. I'm not lying when I say he earned this. And second, Mrs. Chen continued, I will continue selling my herbs. This is my dignity. This is my work. I won't sit at home being supported by anyone. I wouldn't dream of asking you to stop, Jiang Ming said with a small smile. In fact, I think Wei would be angry with me if I tried. He always said his mother was the strongest person he knew. He opened his folder and showed her everything. The Scholarship Foundation documents. The library job description. All official and proper. Nothing that looked like charity. Everything that looked like opportunity earned through merit. Mrs. Chen looked at the papers with eyes that could barely read, but she understood enough. This was real. This was legitimate. This was a chance for Liang to escape poverty not through handouts, but through his own abilities combined with proper support. There's one more thing, Jiang Ming said. The scholarship to my foundation also includes acceptance help for provincial number 1 high school. I have connections there. If Liang passes their entrance exam, and I'm confident he will, the scholarship covers all costs. Provincial number 1, the best school in the province. Mrs. Chen had heard Liang mention it once, then never again. Had he given up on that dream because he thought it was impossible? When can he apply? She asked, her voice shaking slightly. The entrance exam is in 6 weeks, but there's an application fee of 200 coins due in 4 days. I have it, Mrs. Chen said quickly. She had been saving those coins for his regular school fees, but this was more important. I have enough, Zhang Ming smiled. Actually, the Scholarship Foundation covers all application fees for candidates. Consider it already paid. That evening, when Liang came home from his tutoring job, exhausted and worried because he was still 20 coins short of his goal, Mrs. Chen was sitting in their small room with a strange expression on her face. Liang, she said quietly, sit down. Something happened today, something that's going to change everything. And as the single light bulb swayed gently above them, she told her grandson about the scholarship, about the library job, about provincial number 1 high school. She watched his face move through disbelief, then hope, then joy, then tears. He cried in his grandmother's arms that night, not from sadness but from relief, from possibility, from the sudden feeling that maybe, just maybe, his dreams weren't impossible after all. And Mrs. Chen held him tight, thinking about her son who was gone but whose friendship still reached across the years to help his child. Some debts of love, she realized, can never truly be repaid. They just get passed forward to the next generation. 1 week later, everything seemed to be falling into place. Liang had submitted his application to provincial number 1 high school. Zhang Ming had given him study materials and arranged for weekend tutoring sessions. The entrance exam was scheduled for next month. Life felt full of hope for the first time in years. Mrs. Chen woke up that morning the same way she always did. Before dawn, ready to gather herbs and head to the market, nothing had changed in her routine. She still needed to work. She still had her dignity, her purpose. The scholarship would help with school, but they still needed money for food, for rent, for everyday life. She gathered her herbs from the hills as usual and walked the familiar path to the market. But when she arrived at her spot near the entrance, something felt different. There was unusual activity. Men in uniforms were walking around, talking to vendors. Some had clipboards. Others had measuring tapes. Mr. Wang, the vegetable seller, looked worried. What's happening? Mrs. Chen asked as she spread out her bamboo mat. Government people, Mr. Wang said quietly. They've been here since early morning. Something about an inspection. Mrs. Chen felt a flutter of anxiety in her chest. Inspections were never good news. Usually they meant new rules, new fees, or new problems for small vendors like herself. She arranged her herbs and tried to focus on her work. A few customers came by. The morning proceeded slowly, but the uniformed men kept walking around, measuring things, taking notes. Their presence made everyone nervous. Around mid-morning, one of the officials made an announcement in a loud voice. Attention all vendors. There will be a provincial government motorcade passing through this area today at 2 o'clock. This market is on the main road route. For security reasons, all vendors must clear out by 1:30. The market will be closed for approximately 2 hours. A wave of protests rippled through the market. 2 hours? That's our busiest time. We'll lose half a day's income. Where are we supposed to go? Can't the motorcade take a different route? The officials weren't interested in complaints. These are direct orders. The motorcade cannot be rerouted. You have until 1:30 to pack up and leave. Anyone remaining will be removed by security. Mrs. Chen felt her stomach sink. Losing half a day meant losing half her income. And today was supposed to be a good day. She had gathered extra herbs, hoping to make enough money to buy Liang some new shoes. His old ones had holes in them. But worse than the lost income was something else. Zhang Ming had said he would come to the market today. He was bringing the final scholarship papers for her to sign. Papers that had to be submitted by tomorrow. If the market was closed, how would he find her? He had her home address, but what if he came during the closure and left? What if she missed this chance because of a motorcade? She looked at the folder of Liang's academic records sitting beside her mat. She had brought them to show Zhang Ming, proof of every perfect test score, every teacher's glowing comment, evidence of why her grandson deserved this opportunity. The morning dragged on. More customers came, but everyone was distracted by the upcoming closure. Vendors were anxious, debating what to do. Some decided to pack up early and go home. Others grumbled but prepared to follow the orders. By 1 o'clock, the officials returned with security guards. They began moving through the market systematically, telling people to leave. Pack up now. You have 30 minutes. Mrs. Chen stared at her herbs, at her old bamboo mat, at this spot where she had sat for 8 years through rain and sun, through good days and bad days. This small piece of ground represented her independence, her ability to provide, her dignity. And suddenly something shifted inside her. A lifetime of being pushed around, of following orders, of accepting that people like her didn't matter. It all came bubbling up. She was 68 years old. She had survived the death of her husband, the death of her son. She had raised a grandson on almost nothing. She had worked until her hands bled and her knees screamed in pain. And she had done it all with her head held high. And now these men in uniforms were telling her to move. For what? So some important people could drive through in fancy cars? Ma'am, you need to pack up, a security guard said, standing over her. Mrs. Chen looked up at him. Then she looked back down at her herbs, and she didn't move. Ma'am, did you hear me? I heard you, she said quietly. But I'm not leaving. The guard looked surprised. If you don't leave voluntarily, we'll have to remove you. Then you'll have to remove me, because I'm not moving. Other vendors heard this. They stopped packing and turned to watch. This small elderly woman refusing to budge. It was such a simple act of defiance, but somehow it felt enormous. Mr. Wong spoke up. If Auntie Chen isn't leaving, then I'm not leaving either. The fabric seller nodded. Me too, this is our livelihood. We can't just lose half a day's income because important people want to drive by. One by one, other vendors stopped packing. They had all been thinking the same thing, feeling the same frustration. But it took one old woman's courage to give them voice. The security guards looked at each other, uncertain. This wasn't what they had expected. They had expected compliance, maybe some grumbling, but ultimately obedience. Not resistance. If you all refuse to leave, there will be consequences, the head guard warned. What consequences? Mr. Wong asked. Are you going to arrest us for trying to feed our families? More guards arrived. The situation was escalating. Officials were making urgent phone calls. The vendors stood firm, many of them now gathered around Mrs. Chen's spot. Not aggressive, not violent, just standing their ground. Mrs. Chen herself remained seated on her mat, hands folded in her lap. She wasn't trying to be a hero. She wasn't trying to make a statement. She was simply tired of being invisible, tired of being pushed aside as if her life, her work, her needs didn't matter. At 1:45, with 15 minutes before the motorcade was scheduled to arrive, the tension in the market was thick enough to cut. Security guards formed a line. Vendors stood together, and Mrs. Chen sat peacefully on her bamboo mat, her herbs arranged neatly around her, as if it were just another ordinary day. Last warning, the head of security said. Leave now or face arrest. Nobody moved. In the distance, they could hear sirens. The motorcade was approaching. The officials looked panicked. This was a disaster. They couldn't have a standoff with vendors when the provincial governor was about to drive through. Clear them out. Now. Use force if necessary, someone ordered. Guards moved forward. Some vendors looked scared now, but they held their positions. Mrs. Chen closed her eyes. She thought about Liang, about his future, about how sometimes standing up for yourself was the most important lesson you could teach. She thought about her son, who had always told her she was the strongest person he knew. She thought about her husband, who had loved her stubbornness even when it frustrated him. She thought about all the years of struggle and survival. If this was her last act of defiance, so be it. The guards reached the first line of vendors. There was pushing, shouting. Chaos was about to break loose, and then the motorcade arrived. The line of black cars drove slowly down the main road that ran alongside the market. They were supposed to pass by quickly, but something made them slow down. Then stop. The door of the center vehicle opened, and a man in an expensive suit stepped out. The provincial governor himself had exited his car. His security detail immediately surrounded him, concerned. Officials ran toward him, trying to explain the situation, trying to get him back in the vehicle. But the governor wasn't looking at them. He was looking at the market, at the vendors standing together, at the security guards in confrontation position, and at one small elderly woman sitting calmly on a bamboo mat, surrounded by bundles of herbs. He started walking toward the market. His security tried to stop him, but he waved them off. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice carrying authority. The officials stumbled over their words, trying to explain. But the governor wasn't listening to them anymore. He was walking directly toward Mrs. Chen. He stopped right in front of her mat, looked down at her, looked at her herbs, looked at her weathered face and tired eyes, and something changed in his expression. Recognition, shock, disbelief. "It's you," he whispered. Mrs. Chen looked up at this powerful man standing before her. His face seemed familiar somehow, but she couldn't place it. "So many faces came through the market over the years. I'm sorry," she said. "Do I know you?" The governor's eyes filled with tears. He knelt down on the dusty ground, not caring about his expensive clothes, and looked at her with an expression of such deep emotion that everyone watching fell silent. 30 years ago, he said, his voice shaking, "I was nobody. Just a young government clerk. I collapsed right here in this market. Sick with fever, dying," the doctor said later. "And a young woman who sold herbs, she took me to her home. She nursed me back to health with traditional medicine. She saved my life. And when I tried to pay her, she refused. She said helping people was what neighbors do." Mrs. Chen's hand flew to her mouth. She remembered now. A young man so sick, burning with fever. She had been younger then, maybe 38. Still had her husband. Her son was still in school. She remembered making medicine from herbs, sitting up with the stranger for 3 days and nights, watching him slowly recover. "You," she breathed. "That was you?" The governor nodded, tears running down his face. "I've looked for you for 30 years. I never forgot your kindness, but I lost track of which market it was and I could never find you again. And now here you are, still selling herbs." Still here, the entire market was silent. Even the security guards stood frozen, watching this impossible moment unfold. The governor stayed kneeling in the dust, looking at Mrs. Chen with 30 years of gratitude in his eyes. Around them, the market had gone completely silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. "I don't understand," Mrs. Chen said softly. "You're the provincial governor. How did you find me here?" "I didn't find you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Fate brought me to you. Or perhaps your kindness called me back. All these years I've been looking. I hired people to search. I visited markets across the province. But I could never remember exactly which one it was. And now, of all the moments, of all the days, my motorcade stops here. And there you are, exactly where you were 30 years ago." He turned to his officials, who stood nearby looking absolutely stunned. "Cancel the route closure. The market stays open. In fact, the market will never be closed for government business again." "But sir," one official stammered. "The security protocols—" "I don't care about protocols," the governor said firmly. "These people are trying to make a living. We serve them. They don't exist to make our lives convenient." He stood up and addressed the crowd of vendors who had gathered. "This market will be declared a protected site, a cultural heritage location. No one will ever force you to close or move again. You have my word." The vendors looked at each other in amazement. Some started crying. Others began talking all at once, their voices filled with relief and joy. But the governor wasn't finished. He turned back to Mrs. Chen. "Tell me about your life, please. Let me know how you are. Let me finally repay what you did for me." Mrs. Chen felt uncomfortable with all the attention. She was just a simple herb seller. She didn't need grand gestures. "I'm fine," she said. "I have my health. I have my work. I have my grandson." "Your grandson?" "Yes, he's 15. Very smart. Going to be something special one day." "Tell me about him," the governor said, sitting down on the ground beside her mat as if he had all the time in the world. His security detail looked nervous, but he ignored them. So Mrs. Chen told him about Liang, about losing her son and daughter-in-law, about raising the boy alone, about his intelligence, his hard work, his dreams. The governor listened to every word, nodding thoughtfully. "And where is he now? What are his plans?" "He's applying to provincial #1 high school," Mrs. Chen said, pride shining in her voice. "A friend of my late son created a scholarship for him. He takes the entrance exam next month." The governor's expression became very serious. "Provincial #1, that's an excellent school, but very competitive. My Liang will pass," Mrs. Chen said with complete confidence. "He's never failed at anything he's tried." At that moment, Zhang Ming pushed through the crowd. He had been trying to reach the market for the past hour, but had been blocked by security. When the motorcade stopped and everyone got distracted, he had finally made it through. "Mrs. Chen," he called out. "I'm so sorry I'm late." The roads were all blocked. He stopped when he saw the governor sitting beside her. His mouth fell open. "Jiang Ming?" the governor said, standing up. "Is that you?" Jiang Ming's eyes widened. "Governor Liu? I didn't expect to see you here. You two know each other?" Mrs. Chen asked, confused. "Jiang Ming and I have worked together on several business development projects," the governor explained. Then he looked at Jiang Ming with new understanding. "Wait, you're the one who created the scholarship for her grandson?" "Yes," Jiang Ming said. "Her late son was my best friend in university. When I found out about his death and learned about the boy, I wanted to help." The governor smiled slowly. "So this woman saves my life 30 years ago. Her son becomes best friends with a successful businessman. And now that businessman is helping her grandson. It's like the kindness keeps flowing forward generation after generation." He thought for a moment, then made a decision. "I want to establish something permanent, not just for this boy, but for others like him. Jiang Ming, would you be willing to partner with the provincial government to expand your scholarship foundation?" "Of course," Jiang Ming said immediately. "Good. We'll create a special fund. Full scholarships for children from market vendor families. Children whose parents work with their hands, who struggle to pay school fees. We'll call it the Chen Memorial Scholarship in honor of Mrs. Chen and her son." Mrs. Chen started to protest. "That's too much. I don't need—" "It's not about need," the governor said gently. "It's about what's right. You saved my life when you had nothing. You didn't ask for anything in return. But I'm asking you now to accept this, not for yourself, but for all the other grandmothers and grandfathers, mothers and fathers who work in markets like this one. Let them have hope for their children." Tears rolled down Mrs. Chen's weathered cheeks. She couldn't speak. She just nodded. The governor pulled out his phone and made several calls right there in the market. Within minutes, he had arranged meetings, allocated funds, set plans in motion. When he finished, he turned to Mrs. Chen again. "Now about your grandson's entrance exam. I want to make sure he has every resource he needs. Jiang Ming, can you arrange advanced tutoring?" "Already done," Jiang Ming said. "He's been studying hard. He'll be ready." "Good, and Mrs. Chen, I want you to know something. Whether your grandson passes that exam or not, his education will be taken care of. But I have a feeling, based on what you've told me, that he'll pass easily." Over the next month, Liang studied harder than he had ever studied in his life. Jiang Ming arranged for the best tutors. The governor personally called the headmaster of Provincial No. 1 High School to tell him about this exceptional candidate. But Liang didn't know about that call. He only knew he had to do his best. On the day of the exam, Mrs. Chen woke him up early. She had made a special breakfast, using ingredients she could never normally afford. Eggs, fresh bread, even a little meat. Jiang Ming had given her money, insisting it wasn't charity but an investment in Liang's success. "Eat well," she told her grandson. "You need strength for today." Liang was nervous but excited. "What if I don't pass, Grandma?" "Then you try again next year." "But you will pass. I know you will." The exam lasted 4 hours. Mathematics, science, language, reasoning. Liang worked through every question carefully. Some were incredibly difficult. Some made him pause and think. But he never panicked. He remembered everything his tutors had taught him. He remembered every night of studying by candlelight. He remembered his grandmother's sacrifices. 3 weeks later, the results came. Liang had not just passed. He had scored the highest marks of any applicant that year. Perfect scores in mathematics and science. Near perfect in everything else. When the acceptance letter arrived, Mrs. Chen held it in her shaking hands and wept. Not sad tears. Happy tears. Proud tears. Tears of relief and joy and hope. Provincial No. 1 High School. Full scholarship. Her grandson was going to the best school in the province. That evening, Jiang Ming and Governor Liu both came to the market to celebrate. They brought food and drinks. Other vendors joined in. It became an impromptu party right there among the vegetable stalls and herb mats. "To Liang," someone shouted. "The first Chen Memorial Scholar." Everyone cheered. But the best moment came later when it was just Mrs. Chen, Liang, Jiang Ming, and the governor sitting together as the market closed for the night. "Mrs. Chen," the governor said, "I have one more surprise. We're going to build a statue right here in the market. A memorial to the spirit of this place. A reminder of what matters most." "A statue?" Mrs. Chen looked alarmed. "Not of me, I hope." That would be ridiculous. Not just you, the governor said with a smile. A statue of an elderly woman selling herbs. No name on it. Just a symbol, to remind everyone that the people who work hardest often have the least, and that their work, their dignity, their sacrifices matter just as much as anyone else's. Mrs. Chen didn't know what to say. After a lifetime of being invisible, of being overlooked, suddenly she was being seen. Really seen. 5 years passed. Liang graduated from provincial No. 1 high school at the top of his class. He was accepted to the best medical school in the country, full scholarship again, from the expanded Chen Memorial Foundation. By then, dozens of other children from market vendor families had also received scholarships. Children who might never have had a chance were now going to good schools, pursuing their dreams. Mrs. Chen still sold herbs in the market, not because she had to anymore. The governor had arranged a small pension for her. Jiang Ming had tried to give her money, but she refused to stop working. "This is who I am," she told them. "This is my dignity." The statue stood at the market entrance now. People touched it for good luck as they passed. And every morning Mrs. Chen would arrive before dawn, arrange her herbs on her old bamboo mat and sit in the shadow of that statue. Sometimes tourists would come to see it. They would take pictures. They would ask about the story behind it, and Mrs. Chen would just smile and shake her head. "It's not about me," she would say. "It's about all of us. Everyone who works hard, everyone who sacrifices for their children, everyone who keeps going even when it's difficult." On the day Liang graduated from medical school and became Dr. Chen, he came back to the market. He wore his white coat with pride. He found his grandmother at her usual spot and he knelt down beside her just like the governor had done years before. "I did it, Grandma," he said. "We did it." Mrs. Chen touched his face with her weathered hand. The hand that had gathered herbs for so many years. The hand that had counted coins and worried about school fees. The hand that had held him when his parents died and kept him safe ever since. "You are always going to be something special," she said. "I knew it from the beginning." "Because of you," Liang said. "Everything I am is because of you." Mrs. Chen looked around the market, at the vendors setting up their stalls, at the customers beginning to arrive, at the statue catching the morning sun, at Jiang Ming, who still visited every week, at the sign that now hung at the market entrance declaring it a protected heritage site. Such a simple thing she had done all those years ago, helping a sick young man because it was the right thing to do, and from that one act of kindness so much had grown. Lives changed. Futures opened. Hope given to those who had almost none. "No," she said to her grandson, squeezing his hand. "Everything you are is because of you. Your hard work, your good heart, your determination. I just kept the light on while you studied. You did the rest." But both of them knew the truth. They had done it together. A grandmother and a grandson, surviving, struggling, succeeding, proving that dignity and hard work matter. That kindness returns in unexpected ways. That no act of goodness is ever truly small. And every morning the market opened with new hope. Just as it always had. Just as it always would.